So it is now recording, and we haven't really kind of discussed what we're going to talk about, but I know that you're very aware with Brett and others here, and you're friends with a lot of us now, and you can see what is happening in the world, and you're joining the networks and paying very close attention and getting involved. So it's wonderful to have you express an interest and to come together. And the first thing I would love to ask is to tell us all about yourself and what it is you're passionate about, what your purpose is in life that you feel at this moment is yours.
Thanks, Rob. Once again, my name is Clovis. I'm talking to you right all the way from Uganda. I'm Ugandan by nationality. 30 years old, I'm married. I'm a teacher by profession, but I'm very passionate about what I can call social entrepreneurship, or what you call social innovations. Yeah, I want to create a difference in the lives of every people or every person that I meet, and support them, empower them, equip them to realize their dreams.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah, I mean, I would really think my purpose is to help every person or support every person to recognize the best that they have in themselves and then use that to create the world they desire.
That's absolutely music to my ears. That's exactly what we're all doing here. And so coming together is the first step, and creating all of the networks between ourselves wherever we are on the planet, whether it be Uganda, whether it be England or America or South America, Latin America, in China or Russia, anywhere. We all need to come together and realize that really we're one family, we're one race. There is no reason for us to separate ourselves from each other and play games that are separational, that lead only to building militaries and war and destruction, but instead to co-create and manifest a world which is for the benefit of everybody, and not just the humanity, but for the animals and the nature and the environment that we have to live in.
That's absolutely true. Because I really have when I look at the wars, I look at the disease, the poverty. I think, in my opinion, it is a drift from what we are meant to be. It's a drift. It's a move away from what is natural. Because to me, what is natural is living in harmony, living in peace, living in abundance. So anything that really see, if I check the trend our technology is taking, it is getting into a state of self-destruction. And I think the moment that we have at this hour is for us to bring together people who have a common goal, especially in the direction of what is natural versus what is normal, especially as we strive for peace, as we strive for unity, oneness, as we strive for recognizing the best in the individuals and not what differentiates us, but what brings us together.
Hallelujah, yes. And so could you tell us a little bit about your own journey in life and how you were brought up by your parents, or any kind of religious background you may have had or not had, and struggles you've had, challenges you've faced in your life, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a fresh recollection of how I was maybe between the age of 1 and 5, but I'll try to bring together some pieces. I was brought up in what I can call, from a religious perspective, my family is purely Catholic. I was brought up in a Catholic family. And I remember even before I went for formal education, I used to be among those kids who would recite prayers for the family, Catholic prayers. And when I was completing my primary education, I remember telling my mom, I want to join the seminary and become a priest.
Join the what? Sorry, say that again.
Join the seminary and become a Catholic priest.
Okay.
Absolutely. Actually, what happened is when I was going to a secondary school, I eventually applied to join the seminary. I went to the seminary. The teaching is like any other secondary school, like any other secular secondary school. And after spending 4 years in the seminary, I think something came within me and I was like, I think this is not my calling. So I changed and moved to another secondary school. And later I joined the university. I joined the teaching profession by choice. I thought that if I needed to create an impact in the world, the best way, the best profession that I would go into that would help me to realize that was education. So that's why I opted for education as my first priority. The aspect, let's say from a religious perspective, when it came to the issue to do with God, I had my own questions, and most cases I wouldn't get the answers to those questions. You know, if you look at the Catholic Church, for example, there is no room for you to ask questions. And I started what I can call a personal quest, a personal search for answers. And I think it was in 2006, 2005, 2006, I joined an online community called ZADS. Yeah, there was an online community called ZADS, and they would easily connect with like-minded individuals. It was quite different from Facebook, because here you'd identify people who had similar interests, similar hobbies, and then you can interact with them. And I remember coming across a group of friends from all over the world, and they kind of helped me to get access to different reading materials. And I remember diving deeply into spirituality. So I did a lot of reading on other religions. I read about Buddhism, I read about religious science. I was reading A Course in Miracles. I read the Tao Te Ching for the Chinese, and several other books for different religions. So after reading those spiritual and religious literature for different religions, it made me start to appreciate people of different religions. I used to be judgmental and I think maybe my religion is the right religion, but as I dived into other people's literature, other religious literature, I realized that all religions are pushing almost for the same cause, except they're approaching it differently. So to me, at that moment, I think like after digesting that literature, like for a year or two, I didn't consider myself religious anymore. I look at myself as a spiritual being. And if anybody, for example, asks me a question, what is your religion? I would say, I don't have any religion. I'm very spiritual. I can subscribe to any religion. There is no right religion. There's no wrong religion.
Fantastic. And so with that and becoming a teacher, you must have some wealth of knowledge that you want to pass on to the children you're teaching. And are you able to do that in your community? Are you able to do that in your school without being told by a higher force, let's say, that you're allowed to do that? Or do you have to follow a certain curriculum, a certain syllabus, a certain mandate for teaching? Or are you allowed to teach as comes through you, rather than as is what is told to you you are allowed to do?
Yeah, I was telling you that currently, in as much as different schools have almost the same curriculum, we have a national curriculum on what we can teach our students. But when it comes to the aspect of spirituality, we're not restricted. It is true that the school I work with at the current moment is started by Catholic nuns. But that does not stop me from passing my message to the students. So, I'm not teaching spirituality, I'm not teaching religion. I teach mathematics as a subject. But of course, as I teach mathematics, I pass around my message, especially on the aspect of the relationship between man and God. The aspect of religion, I try as much as I can to tell my students to break free of religion and become spiritual human beings and realize that there's more to their lives than what religion claims. I do that without any higher power stopping me from that. And I don't think anybody can stop me from doing that.
Fantastic. And so how would you, are you able to tell us a little bit about some of the results you may have seen in the children that you're teaching, that they are opening their minds and expanding to the beauty of the universe, the beauty of nature, the beauty of literally just being alive?
At the moment, I may not measure it so much. However, when I started sharing some of these concepts, especially with my workmates, of course, some of them would look at me, with this weird look. Then as I shared this concept further with the students, of course, when people are brought up in a religious perspective, when you share some of these concepts, they don't receive them in good faith for the start. But with the time when they see you practicing what you are telling them, then they're inspired. They're inspired to do the same.
Fantastic. Yes, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's about setting an example by doing and not just telling what it is to do. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So you know that we've discussed already how the world is operating right now in separation and very isolated from one another. What in your spirituality have you come to realize that if we all step outside of our fears and we embrace love, which is not the romantic love, so to speak, but the love that is all encompassing, the love that is the universe and the energy, the glue that holds everything together. If we all are able to listen to our intuition and to follow our purpose, then could you tell us a little bit about what you can see happening in the world as a result of that?
I think what I envision, I'll share from my personal experience, is one, we need to come out clearly. If we can continue talking and sharing and living by example of the spiritual world that we envision, it is very easy for other people to adapt. I mention that because, I have a big number of friends whom I have initiated into reading the spiritual content and appreciating concepts like love, from love being essential to love being our nature. When you explain clearly some of these concepts, people, in my opinion, I think people believe or accept different things from my personal experience and from what they have read and from probably what people who they think know more than them have told them. Now, when you come out and show them something that is different, and yet what is different is explained in a way that is not forceful, but in what I can call a convincing language. I have read books by Anthony de Mello. Like there's that book called The Way to Love. It helped me to understand the concept of love so much. I mean, to love is our nature. That is who we are. And I started practicing the concepts in Anthony de Mello's work. And I realized that, I remember there's an incident when I went to class and, I am extending this feeling of love to every student I'm in contact with, every person I meet along the way. And all of a sudden, the way the students are understanding my concept improves. The way other people around me are relating to me also changes. So it is some of these concepts, I was telling a friend that they might become very hard, like for me to explain to others, but they are very understandable when you're experiencing them. So it is kind of an experiential kind of feeling, but logically, some of these concepts beat logic. They are beyond logic. And if you had asked me a question that, if I'm to respond to your question, how do I envision the world based on those spiritual concepts? I think if we can relate to each other from universal principles, like the principle of unity, the principle of love, the principles of harmony, I envision a world where there is no more war, there is no more prejudice, there's no more bias, because I'll give you a concept. At the moment, you know, one of the challenges we have here in Africa is judging people by their religion, judging people by their ethnic background, judging people by their level of education. But when you bring in the universal principles, like the principle of love, you realize that religion is not natural. You realize that race is not natural. You realize that your level of education doesn't determine who you are. So who you are is this spiritual, pure, loving, perfect human being, irrespective of the external definitions that human beings bring in.
Absolutely. I mean, for me in my own journey, what I can point to is that my culture in England, I'm from England, and it's very isolated. So you might say conservative too. So people like to build up their wealth, their materialistic ownership of things, houses, cars, and then they live in this system where, you know, they're rewarded for in terms of their value, their time at work. And then they spend that money on something that will improve their status and the way they're perceived by others in the same culture. So when you step outside of that culture, you realize it for what it is. And this is not my own feeling. This is from many people, but in particular, someone I remember saying it was Terence McKenna, who was someone who worked very closely with psychedelic plants like ayahuasca and magic mushrooms and so on. And he said that when you step outside of your own culture, you realize finally that it's mass hypnosis on a grand scale in that area, because then you go into another area, which is mass hypnosis for that area, and so on, in this separational view of seeing the world. So for me, it was a journey of going through one culture to another culture to another culture, and realizing that if I was to embrace people just as people, but not as their culture, then I was received just as a human being, not as part of that culture. and in that, you know, I'm not trying to boast on this, but what I have experienced is just an abundance of love coming back to me as I give my love out to the people that I meet, no matter what place, country they may be from, what color of skin they are, what sex they are, what religion they are, anything, but just as another human being, as another walking, talking aspect of the whole of the creation that is in front of us and in us and through us. So a question about true education. I mean, you're a teacher, so it's perfectly for you. I went through a system of schooling in England, which I can only classify as training for the industrial world. It doesn't teach practicalities about how to cook. It doesn't teach practicalities about your own emotional well-being. It doesn't teach practicalities about how to take care of others or how to focus on what is truly your essence, truly your unique aspect of being. It is always about the competition to go up a scale of a ladder to get to somewhere which they seem to promise will bring a certain degree of happiness. Yet for me, I didn't experience that in the space of 2 years. Some people do it for a long time, and then maybe they get to like 40 years old, and there are other beautiful people on the internet you can listen to, philosophers like Alan Watts, who will do a little video like Music and Life, and they'll say, you know, you might have what you call a midlife crisis, which is in fact a midlife spiritual awakening. But what they do in the West is, at least to a large degree, and I don't want to generalize because people have their own free will, but you know, doctors will prescribe pharmaceutical drugs when someone comes and says, why is the world like collapsing in on me? And the first thing the doctor does is say, here, take this antidepressant and go back to work. So it's I didn't want to follow that path. Things have opened up for me that are a very different sense of the world, sense of reality, sense of magic, sense of purpose, sense of connection and love. Can you give us an experience that you've had in your own life where you've had some magic that just happens because you've embraced your own experience, your own sense of your unique self and your own spirituality? Some beautiful things that have occurred for you because you are in tune with yourself.
I think I have been living my life that way. That has been my life, and you know, as we've been talking, I'm trying to relate what has been taking place in my life, what I see taking place in my community. One thing I can say is in our country at the moment, you know, we use the British education system. And
I apologize.
So what is happening is education, to me, as somebody who is in the teaching profession, education is losing direction. Because what you're doing is what you put across very clearly in your previous few statements, that it is training, it is not education. Because you have a pre-designed curriculum for somebody whose talent, somebody whose passion, somebody whose aspirations and dreams you don't know. So you come and you enforce this curriculum on them. And then that kills their talent, it kills their passion, it kills the skills that they were supposed to develop. And it's like I've been sharing with a friend of mine, I think is from UK too. And I'm like, this needs to change, especially in countries that it has not yet gone to the extreme. Because what is happening, like in my country at the moment, is we are reaching a point where people complete school, but the jobs are not in place. One of the reasons they're not seeing the jobs is because you have forced onto them a curriculum that is preparing them for the industrial age. Yet, we are no longer in the industrial age. We are moving into the information age, and an age better than that. Now, of course, back on ground here, personally, what I can say, one of the things that I and a group of friends are trying to put in place is to integrate the development of talents alongside this curriculum. We may not throw away the curriculum at the moment because it has been there for a long period of time, almost coming to 100 years. So real transformation might not be instant. It's not like a switch that you click and things change. So we are thinking, why don't we integrate the development of passions and talents so that these learners, in as much as they are following the curriculum, they grow alongside their other talents and passions. That is one. Back to your issue, what are some of those spiritual experiences that I've had and all of a sudden seen my life take on a different twist? Personally, I've had switches in beliefs, let's say from a scarcity mentality to an abundance mentality. The mentality from switching from the world is a dangerous place, it's a tight place, you cannot trust people, to switching to being more vulnerable and trusting more. I mean, I'm very sure you remember the incident that took place. I think it was around December last year. I think that is when I got to meet you.
Yes.
And I was willing to be vulnerable. Sometimes we look at vulnerability and we think it is a weakness, but I've realized that the more you accept to be vulnerable, the more you realize that there are other people who have like minds or who have like thoughts and like ideas, and they want to come in and be part of your journey. The other thing which I can share with you is I have dropped the aspect of having what I can call prejudice. The tendency to now look at people and appreciate them as people, irrespective of their backgrounds. That has helped me in a sense that the person, the spirit in me, the human being in me, has been in position to see the human being in the other individual that I'm seeing. And to me, that is absolute magic, because the boundaries are now no longer there. The mental boundaries are created, the mental blocks that were created, all of a sudden, the moment you do that, they break free, and then you can connect at a human level.
I would like to say that you mentioned that, you know, people's thoughts, and if you are vulnerable, that their minds will respond to you. But I just interviewed someone else in the last couple of days, and he made the distinction between the thinking of the mind and retuning to what is inside of our hearts. So when you are speaking from the heart and you are vulnerable, then you will receive the same vulnerability in return. If you are speaking from the mind perspective and someone who is putting you, giving you 20 pages of a business plan, and asking, you know, the opinions and everything, then it takes another 20 days or 20 months to get a reply and a business loan and everything else, right? But if we come together under the understanding that we all experience the same things, we all experience pain, we all experience suffering, which is just an element, it's a different color of life, you know? It is part of life, there is nothing we can do about that. But the only thing we can do about it is to come together and understand that it is a universal principle. It's a universal feeling that everybody goes through. You know, same with romantic love, same with losing somebody to death, or a fear of death. We all have those things, and they're very painful. But we are designed to grow and to get stronger through these things. And it is through people such as yourself that are now coming to this awareness, because that's what it is. It's an awareness state that really, you cannot do it alone. We are in this together. We're in the same boat. We're in the same plane, whatever, you know, like same plane of existence, same boat of the waters, the stormy waters. And life has a tendency to go in peaks and troughs. So it will go up and you'll have a great time, and then there'll be a drop, and then it'll go up again. And do you have any pearls of wisdom for people who are maybe just approaching, or they've approached the peak and they're on their way into you know, something happens, someone dies, a family member dies or something? Any pearls of wisdom of how to deal with that, because we all go through that, and I'm sure you have yourself.
I really absolutely think there's some wisdom I can share on that, and I'm really sharing from a personal experience, so different experiences. I'm learning to let go. It's called you know, I think, to me, I really think from a personal experience, one of the causes of the greatest pain we experience as human beings is
Oh, one moment, you've cut out there. Hello, can you hear me? Can you wave your hand if you can hear me? One moment, can you hear me?
to attachment.
Hi, Clovis. Please, can you start from the beginning again there, because we entered a period of disturbance in the realm. Some spirits and entities want to be heard, I think, maybe. So you're still not coming across very clearly yet. 1 second, and Let's just take a moment in the heart and breathe, and then we'll clear the space. Okay, please start that again.
Okay, I was telling you that I have some wisdom to share as regards how people go about the pain, especially that is caused by loss of somebody or something. In my opinion, I would say that loss or that pain, that grief, the anger is in most cases caused by attachment. Attachment to things, attachment to people. If I can quote, I don't remember really who said this, but somebody I think says, nothing has meaning except the. Let's look at, let's say, loss of life. A loved one dies, or you're in a relationship and the relationship ends. I think what pains us in that state is not the person leaving us, but it is caused by the strong attachment that we had towards this person, towards the thing. And from a personal experience, I've realized that when such a thing happens, let's say you lose a loved one, or you lose something that you held so dear, the best way to go through that pain is learning to let go. You learn to let go. I first do a flashback. How was my life without this thing? How was my life without this person? And then I envision that when one door closes, several other doors open. But so many times, so many of us, we keep our eyes on the closed door that we don't see the other doors that are opening. So if we can learn to let go, and if we can learn that when one opportunity goes, several other opportunities come, it can be a great way to go through what we call loss, or what we call the pain. Because I think loss and pain are only created in the mind, but in reality, they don't exist. When something good goes, something better comes.
Fantastic, fantastic. On that note, I would love to ask you about how you feel towards animals and their connection to us, as we're all one, and there is a great deal of suffering that animals are going through in the world. I don't want to say, I eat meat from time to time, but I understand that to a large degree in the world right now, there are, for example, in England, I think it's every 15 seconds, there's something like 250 animals that are slaughtered. So the question is about, symbolically, how is that related to what we're doing to each other as human beings on the earth right now? Sorry, it's started to break up again. We just go back into the heart for a moment. The animals are all speaking to you. So, just for one moment. And okay, please go.
Okay, so I was sharing with you, I told you that I had not really taken so much time to consciously look at how we can relate to learning from animals, and then we relate that to our own lives. When you shared with me your concept on how we can learn from animals and other creatures, I started questioning why human beings do what they do, say what they say, especially regarding other creatures in nature. And I realized that, let's say, the killing of animals, the suffering that the animals go through is what I can call an accumulation of beliefs from the past.
Is called a what, sorry?
Accumulation of beliefs, of beliefs. So certain people are doing certain things because of a build-up of certain practices that take place in different societies. I'll give an example, like in Africa here, we have feast days, and those feast days, what we are calling a feast day to us human beings, means the animals are dying.
Say again, please, slowly, because it was just difficult to hear.
Yeah, I was explaining, like we have feast days.
Feast days. Okay, yes, got you. Yeah.
So what is a feast to the human beings is a tragedy to the animals. And at some point, human beings are reaching a level where they're treating other human beings the way they treat animals. You understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think when we change the way we treat animals, then we can treat other human beings in a far better way. So, and I'd like to borrow something from Buddhism, where everything is looked at, and everything that you touch, be it a plant, be it anything, you see the God in that. So God exists in everything, and if God is existing in everything, the way we treat animals, the way we treat trees, the way we treat other creatures and birds is the same way that we treat God. So if we see God in everything, it becomes our relationship with everything also changes.
Absolutely, and I see that also with plants. Plants very obviously are sentient too. There are spiritual plants like ayahuasca, and in Africa you may be very well of iboga, the root. I recently experienced this, and all I can say is, of course, they have an extreme power, an extreme teaching to give to us. Do you have any of your own personal experiences with anything regarding this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of days ago, I was challenged with what I can call impatience. There's something that I wanted to happen in a very short period of time. And then I come around over the internet, I don't know how, synchronicity. I received this story about a certain species of tree in China that you water it from the moment you plant it. You watered it, and then you have to put manure, and you do that for around 4.5 years, 4.5 years. Within that period of 4.5 years, it grows for about 5 feet. And then as you continue applying the water and the manure for the next 6 months, that is from 4.5 years to 5 years, it grows to up to 90 meters long.
Double the time in 6 months. Wow. Yes.
Yeah. So it grows exponentially in a short period of time. So the question was, does that tree grow in 6 months or in 5 years? I realized that, of course, automatically it grows in 5 years. How does that apply to my real life situations? I realized that, one, I needed patience. I have those seasons in my life. There's that season when I have to apply the manure, I have to apply the water in whatever life situation that I'm going through. And then let nature take its course for the other steps of manifesting in my life.
Fantastic.
And of course, we do plenty of agriculture, plenty of farming here in Uganda, and there's a lot that we can learn, especially from the farmers. They have a season for preparing the land. They have a season for planting. There's a season for the plants coming out, and you have to prune them, and then ultimately there's a season for harvesting. So if we had these seasons in our lives and we respected them, there wouldn't be a rush. There wouldn't be a worry, a concern. I mean, why is this not happening? We have to give it its appropriate time.
Oh, that is a wonderful analogy about nature, and nature being the book of life. That nature is really the greatest teacher that we have, and we're all starting to now. Again, someone I just recently interviewed was talking about biomimicry. So where we study nature as the book of knowledge, really, because nature shows us how everything can expand and become more beautiful. But when we keep continuing to, for example, cut down the Amazon rainforests or any forest and use the resources as a means to make profit from, then we're really only damaging aspects of ourselves. Here we go. Okay, yeah. So I'm not quite sure. I'm working on so many things simultaneously. I've forgotten where we were exactly. But do you have an idea what you were talking about? I know that I was actually asking a question when we broke off, but I have no idea what it was. So if there's anything that jumps to mind for you that you'd like to.
Yeah, I think we are sharing about lessons to learn from nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I've shared with you my lessons, especially in as regards the African setting and how we learn I've learned so much from nature. And then I think you brought in the aspect of lessons to pick from plants, especially from a Buddhist perspective. And I think that is the note where we are reached so far.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I remember now you were talking about, the examples of how a certain tree in China would take 4.5 years to grow to a certain level, maybe 5 feet in 4.5 years. And then in the next 6 months would grow exponentially the same kind of amount again in just 6 months. And then probably that exponentially more so until it's a giant tree, if it's, well fed and watered. So, I mean, this is a beautiful analogy for life, for human beings. If the young are treated with the necessary love, which comes with.
A moment, please. A moment, please.
Yes.
I'm meeting with somebody here, so when you move out and close the door, you come back. Yes. Yeah. You close the door. Yes. For the past session, I'd moved out of office. I was near some forest. There are some trees near our school.
Yes.
And for this second session, I opted to come in the office, and then I had some of my students had come in to consult me.
Because they love you.
Absolutely, I think so.
Yes, I'm sure they come to you for worldly advice because you come from the heart, and yeah. Children are very, very amazing at picking up on that. Who they can trust and who they want to come to speak with. So I guess that's as good a place as any to kick off on is with children, for people who may be gonna see this interview, who are perhaps thinking of starting their own family, or perhaps they're already in the family way, so to speak, and pregnant and awaiting their first child. You are married and have your own children, is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have my own children.
So perhaps you have some pearls of wisdom for people who are just coming to that realization that suddenly there's going to be this new thing in their lives that they have to take care of, and things they can expect, or things that probably they definitely don't expect, and what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, that is really an interesting topic of discussion. I cannot say I'm the best, but I'm learning so much from parenting. I'm learning a great deal, especially when it comes to raising children. It's here I can expound on two things. I want to first talk about relationships, and then number two, I want to talk about raising children. I can share my mistakes, I can share my breakthroughs, and I'm very sure they can have an impact on some other person who's going through the same challenges of planning to go into marriage or raising children. So I start with this is my third relationship.
We're going to have to start that bit again. Sorry, Clovis, can we start that bit again? It went out again, just from the moment when you were going to begin.
I was telling you that this is my current relationship is my third relationship. So my first relationship was back in 2008. I was still quite young, and I made so many mistakes, and I think I had so many expectations from my partner. She had so many expectations from me. Uh, we had already produced a child, and we really, I think because of age, we couldn't really be patient with each other to allow each other to grow. She was 14 the time I met, and I was, I think, around 18. And the relationship ended, but we have a beautiful daughter together. She's one of my darlings. I love my daughter so much, and right now I'm staying with her, with my current wife. And then the second relationship, I was at the university. So I meet this beautiful girl at the university. I like her so much, and she likes me. We find like we almost have the same hobbies, and we are really matching as the level of thinking and spirituality is concerned. I think we're almost on the same pace. However, the challenge came in here in Africa. There is what you call bride price.
Say again?
Bride price, dowry.
I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, I mean, in your country, it is not there, but here in Africa, before you get somebody's daughter, you pay some amount of money.
Okay.
I didn't have that money, but I had helped the girl to go through school. She loved me, I loved her, but her parents, I think, were not patient with me getting some money and then paying for their daughter and then marrying her. She chose to respect the parents, and our relationship had ended.
Because the parents wanted the money, and this is very interesting from my perspective, because like I said, I never heard of this agreement that happens in your country.
Yeah.
So are you able to expand a little bit on this point about how you feel about that, perhaps?
I really think, of course, at the moment, I can't. It looks like in reality, it is like real business, you know. Somebody actually who has girls, they look at them as a sign of wealth, because they know as men come for them, there's some payment that goes to the parents. And then, you know, the funny part of it is the boy's parents, or the boy is the one who is to pay for the girl, but the girl doesn't have to pay for the boy.
Yeah. Well, there is a similarity in the Western world where, or at least, you know, up until a certain point in time, where the men were expected to pay the way for the women, but not necessarily like a sum of money to the parents. That's the difference, I think.
Yeah, actually here in Africa, it is a specific sum of money. It's negotiable. You sit on a round table, parties from the boys' side and parties from the girls' side, they sit down and agree on an amount, and that amount is paid. So for me, I love the girl, but I didn't have the money. As fun as it sounds, I mean, the girl had to stay with the parents. She's still with the parents. She feels, I think, when I was sharing with her, she still loves me, and she feels that what happens must end, you know. If people love each other, then let them go ahead and build a family together. Let them continue the love. So those are some of the traditional beliefs or traditional elements which are still holding us here in Africa. And as our current generation is concerned, I think we need to break free of some of those holding beliefs, because it personally cost my relationship. My wife now, we've been together for, it's coming to 3 years. We have a child together, and I met her in 2014. We got into a relationship. Our relationship is a strange one, because we are family friends. My mother and her mother, they are so tight, they are so close. my father and her father are also so tight, and in as much as that didn't contribute to us getting into a relationship, but it kind of helps us that when you get a misunderstanding at our age, sometimes we run to our parents and they can guide us. And sometimes we are held by the fear to disappoint the parents. Say, let us, we are disagreeing on this, she's hot-tempered, and no, let's end the relationship. And they're like, look here, we have to respect our parents, and then we stabilize. So basically, what lessons have I learned from relationships? One is relationships require a lot of patience. Number two, it is very important for the partners to understand the different values that they have in their lives. You find that in most cases, the reason relationships end is because of differences in the value system. You find what your partner values is different from what you value. But one of the things that we did with my wife is we sat down, she had her values, I had my values. But we looked for the common values and created values that were not existing in my list and on her list. And then these are the values that guide our relationship. There are some things that we removed from our vocabulary as couples. One of them is there's no such a thing as separation. There's no divorce. It shouldn't even come in our vocabulary, and it is not there. We can quarrel, we can have any kind of misunderstanding, but there's no separation. Because we think our relationship is divine. She's meant for me, I'm meant for her. And separation or divorce is unheard of. We don't think there is anything that can cause a divorce that we cannot sit on a round table and discuss. In most cases, when there's a misunderstanding, we sit on a round table, we discuss the differences, and at the end of the day, we come out with a solution instead of divorcing because of differences.
I totally I love that. But I must ask, for the benefit of people coming from the Western world who get divorced probably more often than they should, what is that relationship that brought you together, that you both agree that there is nothing that you cannot come together upon around a round table?
For us, we look at relationships as it is not logical, it is not emotional, it is spiritual. So we relate at each other from a spiritual perspective. And when you're relating at a spiritual perspective, we realize that at a level of spirituality, there is no her, there is no me. We are all one thing. So I think that is the unifying factor. We pray together. She's Catholic and practicing Catholic, but she respects me because I'm more spiritual, more liberal when it comes to religion. And that is very okay. So in most cases, our relationship, I would really say, relationship differences, the reason people separate is because of external reasons. Maybe because of finances, maybe because of emotion, somebody cheats, maybe because of a different perception on a given topic. But when you bring in the element of spirituality, all those look like minors, but the major combining factor is the mere fact that we are all spiritual beings and we are sharing the same spirit.
Fantastic.
And for that matter, for me and for her, we chose to create what we can call one spirit. Of course, there are other girls, there are other females, there are other men, but as far as our spirituality is concerned, we are one, and we respect that.
And so in regards with your children, I imagine that would be quite an amazing thing for them to be part of, so that, there is an understanding there that's also that your children are part of that wholeness, part of that oneness, so that if you and your wife have a disagreement, then it is not something that necessarily needs to be shown in front of the children or...
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Actually, one of the things we do is, it is strange. We said, if there's anything that is not okay with us, we prioritize the children, especially who are growing up. We don't want them to feel this impacting their lives, because we, through research, through observation, realize that when people separate, it has a psychological and emotional impact on the children. So if there's something that is not okay with us, and probably it requires exchange of words at a higher tone, we excuse ourselves. Maybe we go to some place and then talk that out. And as fun as it sounds, let's say when we have a disagreement, we agreed, we go to our bedroom, we remove the clothing, and we discuss that disagreement when we are naked.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Yes, that takes
Yeah, it sounds funny, but it helps us so much that it is about being vulnerable. It creates the element of vulnerability, and when you're vulnerable, there you can see me as I am. But of course, with the clothing on, there's that kind of pretense, there's kind of hiding. But when you're naked, there's nothing to hide.
And that is another aspect in the world right now where there is a lot of, let's say, experimentation in the Western world, where we have put on not just clothing, but let's say many masks, many facades in our daily lives, going to work. And one of the first questions that you'll usually get in the Western world, in most places, would be, what do you do? And most of the time, the answer from anybody is they will tell you what their job is, and as if that is actually a definition for who they are. So could you expand a little bit on the idea of this, people putting on masks? And because that was such a beautiful thing you said about, that if you have a disagreement with your wife, you'll go to the bedroom and take your clothes off, and you'll discuss it naked as you were born, and many people, can you imagine in the Western world, in the boardroom when they're going to fire someone, and of course the person being fired will have his questions or her questions as to why they're being fired, and the boss just has his suit on, who's probably a little bit more expensive than the employee, so and it creates these levels of separation. So I mean, just something maybe you can offer around that area of how easy and how much, again, it's an accumulation of human nature that has been somewhat, let's just say, somewhat manipulated over time. What is your understanding of this facade that we all carry, as in, the ego, or a sense of status?
Yeah. Of course, I've been a victim to that on so many occasions, but at the moment, I'm free. I can say I'm totally free of defining myself by what I possess, of defining myself of my job, of even defining myself by my children or my family or my background. Those are things that we get to define ourselves when we are in the physical world. But there is more to me than the physical me. So people need to learn, of course. I think some people, of course, are adjusting to learn to differentiate themselves from their jobs. We are not our jobs. We need to learn to differentiate ourselves from, let's say, from our families, I have an identity with or without a family. I have an identity with or without a job. And to me, that is the way I relate to my coworkers. It is even the way I relate to my boss. And in as much as I call her my boss, our school here is headed by a nun, and but we relate at a deeper level. I don't relate to her as, she's here, she's up here, I'm down here, but we relate at a level where we are human, I look at her in most cases as a human being. Yeah, I appreciate the great work she's doing as an administrator. I appreciate the great work she's doing as a leader to run the institution. But when it comes to, let's say, there's a difference.
Sorry, one moment. It's cut out again there for a moment. Wave if you can hear me.
I lost you again.
Yeah, can you hear me now? I can hear you again now. We got to the point when you were talking about the nun being the head of the school, and then you don't see her up there and you down here, but you come together as some, and then I lost you. So if you can start from there.
Yeah. So I was telling you that I relate at a level where I can make a contribution to the school. She's making a contribution to the school. The other members of the school, even the students themselves, are also part in the process of co-creating. We don't have, to me, we don't have this element of mentality that, this is greater than the other. If you look at our structure of administration in the school, it is circular. Instead of being a pyramidal, it is not a pyramid, but a network.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. This is part of what is happening all over the world right now. Is there is a centralization of power, which is that pyramid structure, so that fewer and fewer people are gathering all of the wealth, and they are seen as the ultimate authority, and governments and the idea of questioning the government has become almost very dangerous in so many places. So. My question is about that. How does that happen in your school, and how can we take the microcosm that is existing in your school and scale it outwards into the macrocosm, so that there is no authority. We know that there is no authority over each other. We are all our own unique beings, our own authority. We have an idea which is given to us from source, from God, from the creator, whatever you want to label or call this entity or this thing that is the one, or the awareness. But we all have that. We all have our free will. So how can we transcend this idea of there being any authority outside of us?
Yeah, it seemed to be hanging.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. Did you hear the question?
No, I got the question clearly.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay. Perfect.
At the moment, I can say I'm in a testing period. I'm testing my theories. I'm testing my philosophies. And maybe the good news or bad news is I'm doing this in some other person's institution. My long-term objective, my long-term goal is to start my own school where most of these concepts can be made more practical. Of course, I believe there is a friend of mine, I think in the US, by the names of Michael Strong, says, let us criticize by creating. So if there's something that you're not happy about, you create something. You create the difference that you want to see. So probably within maybe a year or 2 years, I see myself starting my own institution. It might not be exactly like this other school I'm operating from, but what I can call like a new paradigm school where students can be allowed to choose their own curriculum, and the role of the teacher in that state is to nurture the passions, nurture the talents of these children.
Oh, Clovis, that is beautiful. That is exactly what one of my questions that I always ask to everyone who I interview is, what does a true education mean to you? And everyone has their unique way of describing their answer and giving an answer. But an overwhelming alignment in what they say is that it is up to each individual to choose their own experience, and that the others who are elders will just be guides and nurturers to facilitate their own growth and journey through life.
Yeah, Rob, I can add something there. There's something that has really kind of touched me through the education system as I've been teaching and observing the behavior of students and how school is killing the talents and passions and skills of these children. You know, there is labeling of gifted students. We have students who are slow learners, we have students who are fast learners. And the problem with our system of education is it brands the slow learners as if they cannot learn. I mean, to me, which is wrong, very wrong, because I believe every student, every human being for that matter, has a given talent that if they are given an opportunity, they can develop it and make the world such an amazing place. Because, you know, we have a number of activities here. Given that one student is excelling in the logical or what I call cognitive ability, is exceptional in that nature, that is their talent in that part, doesn't make the other student who is not cognitively above a given average dull. Because if given an opportunity, let's say, to participate in music, in visual arts, in drawing, in construction, in cooking, in athletics, you know, at the end of the day, these people would also become stars in their fields. But our system of education is not looking into that. They're only looking at the head. To me, real education is we're looking at the head, we're looking at the heart, and we're looking at the hands. So if you can help to develop those skills, or what I call the 3 H's, then to me that is the education system I desire. And that is the education system I want to create. I'm committed to creating that.
What was it called? The 3
H's. That is the head, the hands, and the heart.
Oh, perfect. Okay, wonderful. Yes, yes. Yeah. And so to expand on that a little bit more, you know, there's an analogy that comes across to me that I remember about the education system. I wasn't completely aware that in Uganda that you were using the English schooling system, but it doesn't really come as much as a surprise, I'm sorry to say. But it's like, but there's the one here that has come about is using animals as the analogy. So you take a monkey and a dolphin and an elephant and a dog, and you line them up so far away from a tree that is here, and they are here, and they all start in the same place. And the first one who can scale to the top of the tree is the winner. So obviously the monkey is going to climb quicker than everyone else because that's the monkey's natural aptitude for climbing that will kick in and win that game. Yeah. Which, you know, it's a game in that regard. So it's not a fair representation of the fact that the dolphin has its own intelligence and ability to swim underwater and to do amazing things and to communicate with humans and so on. And same with the other animals. They all have their own unique aspects of the divine embodied and embedded within them.
Oh, that's really great. It is something that I've taken note of, and I think I'm going to share with my students and my colleagues in teaching. It's really a great analogy.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I really loved it when I first heard it myself, so it's a pleasure to share it forwards. So to take it forward, there's a question where a lot of people, when they first hear it, they might need a moment to think about how they want to answer it. We touched on it a little bit, or at least yourself. You did start to mention about love, and the question is simply, what is love to you?
Love. What is love to me? That's a really nice question, and of course I've thought about it. To me, I look at love as our second nature. Not necessarily even second nature, but you cannot differentiate between love and being human. So to love is to be human. To love to me is that unconditional acceptance, that unconditional respect, that unconditional knowing that there is a soul, there is a spirit, there is another being that exists, and you are working together to make the world a better place.
That is a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for that. And I know one thing for certain, and one of my greatest reasons for wanting to travel to Africa is because of the music there and the dance that has come from there. And let me tell you, as an English Western boy growing up, when I was very young, I had a passion for dancing, which was severely constricted by my peers, my friends at the time, who saw me as a girly boy, and so my idea in myself was put down, right? So I lost my confidence for dancing, and it's taken me. I'm now 34 years of age, almost 35, and it's taken me this long to start to dance. I mean, I used to also, if I'm honest, I used to drink a lot. And then when I have a lot to drink, I could dance, right? But because your inhibitions, they go. But when I am sober, I have this fear. And when my feet feel the music, my feet are like this to the earth and clamped. There's a big fear. So recently I have worked with some plants. And can you still hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. It said on my end that the connection had gone unstable. Yeah, so recently I have started to try to overcome this fear of dancing. And I think when I do finally make it to Africa, that will be much easier because it is so ingrained in the culture there to drum and to dance and to stamp the feet on the earth. And can you talk a little bit about the importance of this and what music means to you and its role in creating a joyful environment to be around?
You know, some time back, I was sharing with a friend. I said, I think music is as old as humanity. And to me, taking away music from people means creating extinction. People will not live without music.
I agree.
And to me, music is very refreshing. This is personally. Every time I listen to music, it's like I've taken a very peaceful sleep. I get revitalized. And I think music is
sorry, Clovis, you've gone out for a moment.
Brings human beings together.
Can you just say that last bit again? It was all I caught was brings humans together.
Yeah. I was saying that music is another thing. I don't know what I can call it, but it is another dimension that brings human beings together irrespective of their backgrounds. So it cuts across all borders. I'll give an example. We can play African music here. You don't hear a single word, but you dance to the tune.
Yes. And
so music is it should be even part of the curriculum. To me, I as a teacher, I do plenty of teaching, and the students learn so fast when we involve music. Even when I was still a young man, growing up and doing my learning, I used to learn a lot through music. Most of the alphabet, for example, the numbers, I learned them through music. So music is an important part of the human race. It is an important part of teaching and learning. Rob, I beg that I switch a little bit to, you asked me a question of what can I share, especially when it comes to the aspect of parenting.
Yes, and, absolutely.
I wanted to share something very small because my data here is also warning again. I have to buy more data if we are to keep this ongoing. I want to share more with you. In case it breaks, it means I'll have to load more data and then we can continue talking. Now, talking about parenting and what lessons are picked is, as I observe my children grow, I have seen students make a lot of mistakes. They are making a lot of mistakes. And the way we relate to them as parents is we have a lot of we sympathize. I don't know if I can call it sympathy or empathy. Those two words confuse me. But we give them ground, we give them room to learn from their mistakes and move forward. For example, as a child learns to sit, to crawl, to walk, to run, to talk, we are very patient with them, and then we give them an opportunity to do that. I mean, it comes naturally, and our role as parents in that sense has been to give them support to realize that. However, what I've seen taking place in school is we're not giving the students in school or the pupils an opportunity to make mistakes. And I think that is very bad. And as a teacher of mathematics, one of the things that makes me different from the other teachers is I allow my students to make as many mistakes as they can. And in the process of making mistakes, they learn so much, and they have appreciated the subject. Because I think mistakes are part of the process of learning. So I would really, to me, my ideal school is a school that doesn't punish people for their mistakes, but a school which rewards people for making mistakes.
Here you go, brother. Here's one more an acronym for you. So you take the word fail, which you could assimilate with mistake, and it's spelled F-A-I-L. So F is for first, A is for attempt, I is for in, and L is for learning. First attempt in learning.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, one more as we're on I have them in my head, you know, they're always there. Fear is F-E-A-R. So F is for let me think about this for one moment. What is it? First, fear is I'm gonna have to think about it for a second. I will send it to you, otherwise it's eating up your data. So I will send you that one. I cannot remember it off the top of my head. Clovis, I would love to continue, and maybe we can do another 40 minutes or so tomorrow night. I really ought to try to get some rest. I have to be up fairly early in the morning. But it has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you, and I've learned a great deal from your wisdom, and I thank you very much for sharing your time with us, and also look forward to connecting again very soon in the near future.
It's my pleasure, Rob. I've loved it so much, and I like your approach of interviewing and interacting. It helps to bring out the best in me. It helps me to have I lost it?
I can still hear. I didn't hear the beginning of that, and the picture is frozen. But oh, now you're back. You're back. Yeah, start from the beginning again there, because I lost the. It went very broken. Oh, maybe it has again. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was saying I really appreciate. Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah, I was saying I appreciate your method of interviewing. It's nice. It brings out the best in me. It reminds me of my story. I can see within you a person that connects with me at some level of emotion, some level of thinking, and some level, of course, at a great level of spirituality. At least we are almost in the same plane of thought, and which is very good for me. Of course, I had shared with Brett a little bit about you. He told me, you know, we're working with Rob, and he's such an amazing guy. And I've been waiting for that opportunity to share with you face to face. So I'm so grateful. I'm so humbled. It's really a great honor to share with you. I'm learning a lot from you, and there is a way you help me to believe in my dreams. There is a way you show me in your gestures that the world I envision is possible, and I have this belief within me that we can create amazing things together. And thank you so much.
Clovis, thank you, brother. Thank you for such warm words and appreciation. Same back to you, brother. Every ounce of my being, for everything you're doing, for the way you're teaching the children, for coming from a place of the heart and bringing your spirituality to help enlighten others, that we can all just be one big happy family. There's no reason for us to go to war. There's no reason for us to fight. And I hope very much that in our lifetimes we can meet and enjoy a big dance celebration with some African drumming and some guitar on my end. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Clovis.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Let's try this again very soon. I mean, I am away on Saturday. I leave for a couple of months traveling around the Americas. So I will endeavor to keep you. Well, I mean, you have me on Facebook, so you can follow what I am doing and feel free to share any thoughts you have, and any time I can, brother, I will share any insights from you to everyone else in my networks, and that's how this works. We share and share and share, and over time it's exponential, just like the tree you were talking about. It can grow very, very quickly when we put our minds and our hearts back together again, and the yin and the yang, and the male and the female that is always interlocked and weaving the most beautiful tapestry in life. Thank you, brother.
All right, thank you, and peace.
Peace, brother. Speak again soon. Much love and light and blessings.
Please, bless you.